Hey guys, we're live. It is almost 1:15 Friday afternoon. It is February 16th, 2024. And we are expecting snow tonight. I really thought, and by saying thought, I mean I really hoped that we were done with snow for the year. But you know what? You never know. You never know. One with February could be a heartbreaking month, as well as March. March can be a heartbreaking month too, because March you're ready for spring. Now February, it's still winter, um, even though it can fool you. It, we've had several nice days in a row. We had one day, it was last week, it got up to um, mid 60s. The week before that, I think we had a day in the 70s. The same week, we actually had a couple inches of snow. So, Maryland or that mid-Atlantic area, you don't know what to expect. So expect, generally, you're better off expecting the worst. And I'm not saying that because I'm pessimistic. I'm saying that because more than likely, you expect the worst, you're going to be prepared for whatever happens. So I generally, even though the weather can fool me, I generally stay in that winter mindset through February. But March, I start getting my hopes up a little bit. And we've gotten some of our worst blizzards in Maryland um, throughout my lifetime in March, it seems. So I don't know why I still get my hopes up, but I do. Um, Mainly because I love everything turning green. And we get that first hint. It is not just green, everything turns vibrant, um, but that deep shade of green found in nature, um, peaking somewhere in May to early June. Um, there's just that depth of green that reminds you that everything about you, everything around you, all of your surroundings is alive and vibrant and full of its own inherent beauty. It's always important to consider. And when I say alive, I don't necessarily mean respiratory life. I don't necessarily mean that it's breathing or that it's experiencing uh, life through the senses or experiencing life the way we would imagine it to be. I mean everything is simply life itself. There's no separation. There's no place where the existence of my life begins and where it ends in the world. We don't get a finishing point. We don't get at the end of my hand, there's no longer life. At the end of my vision, there's no longer life. Everything is just an extension of one thing, which is pure awareness, which is pure life itself, which is pure isness. Isness is I don't know if it was coined by Richard Bach, but that's where I first read it, early 80s. Might have even been the late 70s, which shows you a lot of things. It tells you how old I am, and it tells you how long all of this stuff has fascinated me. The late 70s, I was in my early teens. I turned 14 in 1979. And Richard Bach, who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which I believe was one of the top best-selling books through the entire decade of the 1970s. And he wrote Illusions, which I put up there in one of my all-time favorite books. I don't know if I prescribe to everything that he was teaching at the time, but to a 12, 13, or 14-year-old when I read the book, it taught me, or re-taught me, I should say. When we're born, we all believe in magic. we all experience magic because life itself is just so full of mystery and wonder, curiosity, fascinating things that we just can't get enough of. And then as life progresses, I'm not so sure, quotation marks, progresses, I'm not so sure it's really progress, but it is the way the world works. It's the way life for people to work. We become disillusioned with the magic of ourselves, with the magic of life, and we turn to what everyone tells us is reality. Study hard, get a job, pursue the opposite sex, um, get a wife, get a husband, have kids, get a car, not in any particular order here. These are the things that we're expected to do, and it's supposed to be a safe, steady job unless you are some kind of savant. You have this obvious talent that we are meant to pursue. And so we lose that mystery, we lose the magic, um, which maybe I didn't completely, but I might have been on my way when I read Richard Bach and I became re-enchanted with life. I became re-enchanted with things of spirit in a whole different way. That it was no longer my Catholic upbringing that steered my interior life. It was the belief in a magical universe. It was the belief that there was something in me, a spark of the divine, that fed my imagination, fed my passion. Our friend Destiny Forever Walks PhD is here. Eric, and how are you today? I'm doing pretty well. We, on my second walk for the day, which is usually an easier. Sometimes I'll go for a run, but second walk is whatever happens. It's less about exercise and more being out in nature. The first walk is about being in nature, but I also go at a really brisk, my power walking, race walking, ultra walking pace. And we caught some really great videos, Mocha and I and Misty. Some great videos of a hawk, a couple songbirds, some ducks. It was cold, but it was nice. Destiny says the magical universe does amazing things with us. It does, and more so, it's who we are. And that's what we lose track of. That's what we lose sight of. Somewhere, we believe in our separateness. We believe that we're separate from the universe itself, which means that we're separate from that magic. We can no longer do magic. We can no longer partake in magic. Every once in a while, something miraculous might happen, something amazing might happen, but it's chance. It's a coincidence. It's whatever. So again, it was in those early, I might have been 12, I might have been 13, reading Richard Bach and regaining my re-enchantment with the world, regaining that sense of oneness that Destiny just mentions, oneness with everything. And Destiny says, I love your nature videos of the animals. Thank you. I spot them, help spot them, and Mocha is the chief cinematographer, if I said that right. She has the skills that I lack. I lack those skills with objects, with things that move. I'm good at the things that I do. Writing, walking, running really, really long distances, burpees. I used to be good at lifting heavy things. she's got the skill and the deftness and the patience to get some really great film work. So yeah, back to Cowboy Larry is here. Hey, Cowboy, how are you? It was, again, reading that Richard Bach, and I believe it was Illusions. I think I've read that before, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Although I remember watching the movie when it came on TV. Wonderful story. But Illusions even more, because it got me thinking just in the magic of the universe, that the universe itself is magical, and that, as Destiny said, oneness with everything. By extension, that meant that I was magical, and I had to be. Any way you look at it, when you think if we were formed from the dust and the mud of earth, from the elements, and breathed into existence through the breath of God. Any way you look at it. I know strict materialists who everything has the scientific principle that we are in a material object. Consciousness is an appearance. Consciousness comes from the material objects of the mind. To me, that's even more magical. That all of these things, all of these parts can come together, or seeming parts, can come together and form consciousness and form awareness. Absolutely amazing that can happen. Cowboy is asking how y'all doing. Doing well today, actually. They had mentioned that I got a chance to get out and get some more wildlife videos with Mocha and our dog. Getting ready we're going to get some kind of snow tonight. I don't know how much. Hopefully not much. But hopefully I will get some snow videos as well. Dusty says, I'm doing great, Cowboy Larry. Keep up with your fitness workouts. Definitely keep up with the fitness workouts. Sorry, I'm getting some messages here. So, Richard Bach was the first that I had read the word isness, which is his description for God, his description for the universe, because it just contains the essence of everything. It's why the Hebrew tradition of saying God is, and then there's no need to finish that sentence. The sentence is finished with God is, because it leads nothing off. There's the story of the young Indian boy at the feet of the wise man, who is giving a great discourse on God and the ways of God, and he turns to the little boy and he says, I will give you an orange if you can show me where God is. And the boy, in all innocence and yet in a great wisdom that every child possesses, said, I will give you 1,000,000 oranges if you can show me where God is not. Only from the mouth of kids. Even wiser than the wisest guru or God-realized man or a mystic or physicist, for that matter. Destiny says, is that spelled Richard Bach? Yes, it is. I want to search his work. You'll absolutely love him. From Jonathan Livingston Seagull to Illusions, um, A Bridge Across Forever, which is his story of how he found who he considered his soulmate. Um, and it set so many people up to find their soulmate. And he dealt with the backlash. Maybe a decade or so later, they got divorced. And people wrote him some angry letters, some disappointed letters, some disillusioned letters. I thought she was your soulmate. And yet now you're divorced. How can this be? Should I give up looking for mine? Should I? All kinds of questions. And his reply was, sometimes soulmates come together for the sole purpose of learning how to let each other go. Or learning how to let go, period. Sometimes we learn the lesson that we need to learn, and life moves on. There is no sense in clinging to anything that is simply no longer working. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't put in effort, that you don't try, but you reach an impasse. You reach a point where you know something's over, and to cling to it only brings pain. That's the lesson of the Buddha, is life is suffering, and then he tells you why. Life is suffering because we cling to our attachments, or we push away our aversions. We don't accept what is in and of the moment right now. Our friend Onum's Homestead is here. Says, hey, just a yogi doing burpees in his basement. And to Destiny and to Cowboy Larry. You know what? I always appreciate you guys, how you greet everyone. This makes me feel like I'm surrounded by, I know I'm surrounded by really wise and insightful people, but more importantly to me, I know that I'm surrounded by kind people. And that says a lot to all of you guys. So I appreciate that. I'm going to use my own story as an example that everyone hears me talk about Mocha. And Mocha and I are divorced. We've been divorced for 10 years now. As a matter of fact, we recognize our 10-year divorce anniversary. And I told her, we're lousy at divorce. The day we got divorced, we went out to dinner together. There was reasons for our divorce, but there was no reason for us not to be there for each other in the most meaningful ways possible. And we continued our relationship, and it took many shapes and many turns and many twists, but we are in a happy place with each other, with ourselves, with our relationship. We just never lost sight of that. But if I were to cling to just the marriage, I would have been bitter. I would have been heartbroken and bitter because the marriage was over. Instead of seeing that the relationship was just changing, entitled. The essence of the relationship itself stayed intact, but the title was changing, and it was an opportunity to explore how was it changing? What was it coming to? What was it becoming? And was I capable to allow it to become something that was different than I expected, but still good, still great? Or would I become bitter and leave it behind because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be? I did not want to get a divorce, and at the time it was heartbreaking for me. But somehow through that heartbreak, I was able to stay open to the experience itself. I was able to stay open to the love that was still present, that has never not been present between us. And it became, again, it just became something other. It doesn't have a title. And we're asked about that all the time. You know, people are surprised when they've been around us for a little bit and they see us, we live in different homes, and they see us part company, and like, I thought you were married, and I say no, and they say, you're still together, and I say yes, but differently. We're together in a way that works for us, which makes us no less soulmates. That is, I think, what Richard Bach came to realize. Not to cling to what they thought they were going to be, but to be what they are right now. And in that allowing, in our very allowing nature, things become whatever they are, whatever they're supposed to be. I'm going to use a metaphor, or maybe an allegory, for Odom's homestead. That would be like if I planted a radish seed, really, really wanting a radish, but somehow, mistakenly, had planted a tomato seed. And I kept thinking, but what I really want is a radish. You get what you get. And you make the best of it. You learn to enjoy that radish. And then you get smarter. And you check the seed that you're planting. That's the way it was for me. I expected to be married and be married for the rest of my life. It didn't turn out that way. But it became something other and something better. Destiny says that she is having a blast of a day, which is awesome. And Odom says, I'm glad you're amazing, Destiny. She certainly is. Thank you for all that you do and share. I will second that for sure. As a matter of fact, I just saw your posts. I have yet to be able to reply of information about Destiny that she put out there. Destiny says, it's amazing how people come into our lives to shape our future or help us find ourselves. Many come for a season and some come for a reason. It's all in the divine planning of the divine creator. Odom says, so true. Destiny says, so that's sweet to hear, Odom's homestead. Because Odom said, yes, God smiled on me the day I met my wife. And it is a blessing when we meet that person. And as Destiny said, so wisely and insightful, for however long that is, who knows? Nothing's guaranteed, as much as we wish. And that's one of the teachings of Buddhism and yoga, is the fact that nothing is guaranteed. Not in the way we want it to be or would like it to be. Does that mean that we guard ourselves, that we love in a guarded fashion? It's actually the opposite. It means we give our love away freely and openly. We don't hesitate. We can't afford to hesitate. We can't afford to hesitate to show the people in our lives that we love them, because none of it is permanent. Not for any of us. Which is a hard thing to accept, because we think I can put it off for a day, or they'll be around forever, or the thing is, we just don't know. Take nothing for granted. Appreciate everything. That's the amazing thing, is when you don't take things for granted, that appreciation deepens. It all becomes a gift. That person in our life is such an amazing gift that we learn to cherish in a way that we don't get if we think that we have forever. The amazing thing is that when you learn to really appreciate like that, a moment truly is eternity. What did William Blake, one of my favorite poets. This is the reason why I keep my computer on when I do the live talks. William Blake was an engraver and a poet, but more so, he was a mystic. He was someone who channeled the very voice of God into his writing, into his words. Hopefully I'll find the whole poem here. I'm sure everyone is familiar with some of it. It is a long poem, so I will not read the whole thing. Just the first 4 lines. Auguries of Innocence, William Blake. And I'm sure everyone is familiar at least with the very first line, if not the whole 4 lines. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. That's the timelessness of love. That's the timelessness of appreciation. Finding heaven in a wildflower, holding infinity in the palm of your hand, and an eternity in an hour. I think we've all experienced that when we've been with our loved ones. Spending an hour with that person that we cherish above and beyond life itself can feel like eternity, like the best kind of eternity possible. That we are spending the timelessness with that person. Sadly, William Blake seemed to be a little removed from his own marriage, and his wife said because his best conversations weren't with her, his best conversations were with angels. That William Blake talked with angels. That's where he got his poetic inspiration from. So, sorry, I got William Blake on my mind now, and wondering how, actually, I got on that subject of soulmates and changing relationships. Oh, because we were talking about Richard Bach. And while I'm here, let's go to Amazon. Richard Bach's books. He loves writing about flying. He was in the Air Force, and when he got out of the Air Force, he would fly on a propeller. I forget what they're called. The old-fashioned planes. The prop propeller. And he would barnstorm. He'd go around the Midwest and land in the field and wait for people to show up, and he would give them a ride for, I think, like $2. And that, after he wrote his first book, which was a huge bestseller, he had enough money to do what he wanted, and that's what he wanted to do. He didn't plan on ever writing again when he got the inspiration for Illusions, which is, again, one of my top 10 all-time favorite books. Sorry, my cat is here. And when he wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, it was, for him, he felt it was dictated, much the way William Blake said with his work. He heard the words, he was walking on a pier, watching the seagulls, and he heard clearly a voice in his head saying, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And he was prompted to write that story, which just flowed, came to him from absolutely nowhere in one stream of conscious thing, which I experienced when I wrote my first book. I had just quit drinking, and I was in sort of a did not know where didn't know where I was going to go with my life. And I remember asking clearly when I got out of a deep meditation, what should I do? And I meant that not in the should I have lunch, should I do something, should I go get a cup of coffee? It was what should I do for the course of my life? And I clearly had, it wasn't words, it was just an impression, to be God's hero. No idea what that meant, but I sat down and I started writing, and the outline of my very first book came to me. I wrote it all, one thing, and then I just worked with that. Let's see. Cowboy Larry says it's necessary to have a positive outlook in every circumstances. I agree. Although I think, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't have that positive. But I think it comes to us if we're patient, if we're kind to ourselves and we're kind to the other people who are involved, then that positive outlook comes to us. The positivity of an experience comes to us. And through practice, we realize that whatever happens is just what happens, and that there will be a positive outcome. I'm going to quote Richard Bach again. Cowboy Larry reminded me of a quote. In the end, everything's going to be okay. And if it's not okay, then it's not the end. That has stayed with me since 1979, or thereabouts. Cowboy Larry says, I'm glad you were able to do that with the divorce. It speaks an awful lot to Mocha. For sure. Destiny says, nothing restores our souls like the smile of God upon us. Psalm 80. Psalms are some of my all-time favorite teachings from the Bible. St. Paul's letters to the Corinthians, I quoted the other day, Valentine's Day. Sermon of the Mount, Psalms. Song of Solomon, absolutely beautiful. Our friend, It Is What It Is here. Good morning, Eric and chat. Here to hit the like and show support. I appreciate that very much. I'm curious what's going to be on dock for It Is What It Is and the burpee experience today. His workouts have grown more intense as each day goes on. He's hitting his stride, for sure. It Is What It Is says, well, Destiny is asking how his day is, and Lewis says, Sister Destiny, doing great, just at work, how are you? And Destiny is doing great. Cowboy Larry says, I've been reading Psalms a lot lately. It's soothing for the soul. Maybe more than anything else, I think, in the Bible. I always turn to Sermon on the Mount for how to live my life. It is, for me, it's like the instructions that I read in yoga. If you want to know how to live your life, yoga has the plan. It has the ethical restraints that we practice. It has the personal observances that we practice. Um, or, and, doesn't have to be either or. You turn to Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus gives explicit instructions. This is what I expect. This is what a man or woman, a person of God, of Jesus, this is what they do. This is who they are. Blessed are, and he gives us the outline. But for sheer beauty, for sheer soothing the soul, Psalms, every single time. And of course, as a almost lifelong meditator, my all-time favorite psalm is "Be still and know that I am God." That's instructions in meditation. Be still. You will know the presence of God when you're still. When you turn deep within, when you learn to be quiet, when you regain your natural sense of quietness. When we come into the world, we're new, we're innocent. We don't have thoughts swirling in our minds. We don't have labels. We don't point and say mom, dad, chair, doctor, refrigerator, whatever. We just see. We're aware. That awareness never leaves. It's who we are. But things fill up within that awareness. And somewhere as we grow older, we begin to mistake ourselves for those things, or we view ourselves in relation to those things. I am the owner of this car. I am the owner of that refrigerator. This is my father. This is my mother. This is my wife. We become what George Harrison sang about on Let It Be, I, me, mine. The voice of the ego. The ego is always saying, I, me, mine. It's all about me. This is mine. This is mine. So that awareness is just filled to the point where we lose sight of the fact we think that we're our thoughts instead of knowing that we are the awareness of those thoughts. It's the reality of who we are, or who we are is reality. So when it says in the Psalms 46:10, be still. That's it. Simply be still. That's why Herman Melville in Moby Dick said silence is the only voice of God. It's why every mystic turned to wilderness, turned to nature to regain that silence, get away from the busyness of their lives. So let's keep looking at Psalms. I love the one that Destiny brought up. Destiny says, the metaphors refined in God's word invite us to lean into imagery while also embracing the mystery. That is absolutely beautifully said. Insightful and beautiful at the same time. Really, the Psalms can be viewed as in the same light as yoga, or yoga can be viewed in the same light. I'm just looking at take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. The last of the niyamas, the ethical observances, tells us to surrender in God in devotion. It's the end of the ethical teachings of yoga. We simply surrender in God. The same as saying here, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Right before that, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. So, if anyone has a psalm that they want to share. For sheer beauty, it is hard to surpass the Song of Solomon. Sorry? I get caught up looking at this stuff. I'm reading here a little description of the Psalms themselves. And one of it is the book of Psalms expresses worship. And I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it. Expresses worship. Because when you truly begin to experience God, then your worship just becomes part of your life. Everything, in essence, becomes a pathway to God. It's why everything that William Blake said, to see heaven in a wildflower, becomes an object of devotion. Because where does a wildflower emerge from? Primordial seed that contains the essence of the flower itself. You can't see it. You could cut open a seed and you're not going to find anything ever resembling a wildflower. It's only when you plant it and you nurture it and you have faith that the wildflower itself becomes evident. So, guys, with that, we're going to call it a day. I'm coming up on my second meditation for the day, and I appreciate the company. Thanks for joining me and providing the insight and the inspiration, and actually all of you just putting out that beautiful words, the insight and the kindness makes a big difference. A tiny little section of the internet, just the tiniest, the slimmest slice, just became a kinder place because of you guys. Pretty amazing. And it ripples, continues from here. That's something I have no doubt about. Kindness carries on. Never ending. So, guys, again, I appreciate it. And I will see everyone tomorrow. Destiny says, get a smiling face from Cowboy Larry. Thank you. And Destiny says, thanks, Eric. Lewis, Odom, and Cowboy Larry, blessings to you all. Happy weekend. And to you guys as well. Again, I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.